Raise your hand if you have ever heard of the Laci Peterson murder case. Well, if you haven't, to put it in perspective, this occurrence gained the attention of people all across the United States. I've always been in favor that Scott Peterson did in fact kill his wife, Laci Peterson, and their unborn 8-month-old Connor Peterson during Christmas time of 2003. However, I decided to take the opposing stance today. Today, I will be giving you all the background and basic synopsis of the criminal case involving the murder of Laci Peterson, yet I will be proving to you all that Scott Peterson is in fact innocent. To preface, I want to disclose that I'm not trying to be insensitive towards the murder of Laci and Connor Peterson, and I will also be discussing decently horrific and explicit events. This story dates all the way back to 2002, the year I'm sure many of you were born in, or even just a few years after. I remember hearing about this case through my parents due to the fact that my mom was 5 months pregnant with me at the time this murder mystery transpired. This case especially impacted mothers across the United States and soon-to-be mothers, hence Laci Peterson being 8 months pregnant. On December 24th, 2002, Laci is reported missing by her husband Scott, according to biography.com. Scott had reportedly gone fishing early that morning, where he stated the last time he saw his pregnant wife was around 9:30 a.m. Immediately, all eyes are on Scott, seemingly because of his lack of concern over Laci's disappearance and his refusal to take a polygraph test. Months go by before information begins to surface surrounding the disappearance of Laci and her unborn son Connor. Exactly a month later, on January 24th, 2003, a woman by the name of Amber Fry reveals her secret relationship with Scott. Although the scrutiny of investigators was already on Scott, this, for obvious reasons, worsens his situation. Amber Fry discloses on national television and to the police that her and Scott had been dating 2 months prior to Laci disappearing, Amber not knowing Scott was married. From this vital information, Scott is accused by the public eye and law enforcement to have killed Laci, yet there was no evidence to convict him. Several months pass, and Laci's case is now distinguished as a homicide instead of a missing persons case. This took place on March 5th, 2003. A little over a month passes, and Laci and Connor's body are discovered in the San Francisco Bay. Scott was immediately accused for these violent acts because he would frequently go fishing at the Berkeley Marina 2 to 3 miles away from where Laci and Connor's bodies were discovered. Scott was arrested in La Jolla, California, and as he was trying to escape across the Mexican border. He was caught driving his mother's Mercedes containing $15,000, his brother's ID, and multiple cell phones. He also had bleached his hair and grew out his facial hair and now had a goatee. From all the details I just gave you, you must be wondering, why in the world would I believe this man is innocent? This is a great question, since numerous people would disagree with my opinion. However, there is truly no evidence that leads to Scott Peterson killing Laci. Despite him having an affair with another woman and trying to flee the United States, I understand why many people are quick to conclude he is guilty. I'm not trying to prove he is a good man. I'm only going to attempt to persuade you all that he is innocent. Like I just previously stated, there is no evidence supporting that Scott contributed to the disappearance and murder of Laci and Connor. The prosecutors and police claim that the murder of Laci took place in the home that both Scott and Laci shared in Modesto. After Scott reported Laci to be missing, the police investigated the home extensively for 2 days, where there was no evidence produced from the scene, no evidence that Scott partook in a cleanup of evidence, and no evidence on Scott's arms, hands, upper body, or face to decipher that there was a struggle. The murder is claimed to have occurred on the 23rd. Laci's body was transported into the tarp on his boat, where he supposedly dumped her in the Berkeley Marina the morning of the 24th. Cadaver dogs searched Scott and Laci's home on the 27th, where they didn't seem to pick up any trace of a body. Keep in mind, cadaver dogs can pick up scents of the deceased after hundreds of years after the occurrence. According to the Scott Peterson appeal website, Scott's boat was not stable enough to dump a body out of it. It could realistically only fit one person in it. With the weight of Scott, Laci, and the 4 anchors stabilizing the boat, the back of Scott's boat would have approximately sunk. The only reasoning prosecutors had to convict Scott of murdering Laci and Connor was their bodies wound up exactly 3 miles away from where Scott was fishing that day. Because of Scott's affair with Amber Fry, his considered suspicious behavior, and his attempt to flee the country, and there being no evidence to support that he did or did not murder his wife and child, Scott was sentenced to life in prison. For the small group of people who do believe that Scott is innocent, including his sister-in-law, Janie Peterson, this is what they believe to have happened the day Lacey went missing. There were a few witnesses that claimed they had seen Lacey walking her dog an hour after Scott had left to go fishing earlier that morning. There happened to be a home in the neighborhood that was being burglarized, and Lacey, witnessing the entire event, threatened to call the cops. The burglars, frightened to be incarcerated, took the next steps to strangle Lacey and dispose her body 90 miles away from where Scott happened to be fishing at the time. As stated by the Modesto Bee, after the evidentiary hearing on August 22nd, 2022, a woman reached out to Janie Peterson on Twitter claiming she was at a gathering with a man who confessed about the burglary, abduction, and murder of Lacey and Connor. Janie immediately reached out to Scott's attorneys, where they later reviewed 3 people who also said they witnessed the man make the following statements. 2 of the 3 witnesses later signed declarations claiming they were present and hearing the unknown man confess to Lacey and Connor's murder. In the declaration, it states that the man was accompanied by 2 other men when burglarizing the home. They were confronted by Lacey and could not possibly get caught. Therefore, the 2 other men the unknown suspect was with killed Lacey. They had heard about where Scott was fishing that morning on the news, and a few days later dumped her body there. Overall, the murder of Lacey and Connor Peterson is tragic, nonetheless truly a mystery. There is no proof that Scott Peterson murdered his wife, yet there is no physical evidence to prove his innocence either. Because of the given circumstances and Scott's acts of adultery, the nation was bound to find Scott guilty. The central principle of my speech is not to exhibit that Scott is a good man, but that he is potentially innocent and deserves a retrial. Thank you.